All right, let's dive deep into this one. We could call this video the divine feminine traits in a relationship, or the traits of a grown, integrated woman in a relationship. But it's quite multifaceted. So we could also call this video, Why Are You Attracting Weak Men? Or why are you pulling out the weakest version of your man? And furthermore, this is also the list that I would give to my little brother or the real man in my life, looking for the qualities of a real woman. So again, this is quite deep, and I want to treat this like a let's sit down together, like let's come together in this almost mystery school like environment, because that's literally what happens when women share data. So I probably won't edit this video, and it's going to be more of a stream of consciousness, and I want it to feel more real, more life. Like, okay, we're all sitting down here, we're having cacao, tea, whatever, we're in PJs, we're naked, lingerie, like you do you, boo. I want this to be like a real get together. And for that, I really want to honor the space of YouTube, because everything is so available and sometimes we can take this for granted, but this is major. Like, just because all of these like resources are available for free shouldn't take away from the potency. And I'm thinking about all of my teachers and all of the people that I found on YouTube that literally changed the trajectory of my life eternally, like beyond this lifetime. And there is no value that we can put on it. And so it's on you to look at this like an opportunity to evolve and to grow. And again, just because this is so available and it's on YouTube and it's for free, don't let it take away from the transformation and the potency. Right? Oftentimes when we invest into courses or group coaching or containers, we get so much out of it because we're invested and we honor our investment. But if you honor this right here, you'll get just as much out of it. And again, like, this is wild that we live in times where we can basically gather as the mystery school online, and we can find these resources that back then we would have to give up our whole life and travel to mountaintops or renounce our identity and go into a temple, right? It's like think about the times we live in, and rather than seeing technology as bad, we are in the golden age, and we merge that with the age of technology. And so this is, okay, I'm done with my rant, but I'm just like, this is really a space to be honored. So let's dive in here. Okay. Ooh, I'm excited for this one. So I dive really deep into the field of the women that I work with. And I can tell you literally anytime, and this is true for my own experience as well, anytime a woman experiences weak masculine energy in her relationship or in her life, it is a mirror. This world, this realm energetically that we live in is not chaotic. We live within energetic laws. So if you see a very weak version of your man, or you keep attracting weak men in the past, right? Because this is all going to change now. But if you kept attracting weak men, it is a mirror. Law of reflection is working in your reality. So that's really, really good news, because 90% of the time, as you shift, you will see a very different reflection of your man or the man you're attracting. And again, I can tell you that it's 100% true in all of my sessions, and it was very, very true for me. I would say 100%, right? Of course, there are certain moments where the law of reflection or the mirror works in a way where it's showing you what you're still tolerating, but it's no longer alive in you. So I don't want to get too deep into the mirror or the law of reflection because it's not that black and white. But for most of us, if we see a pattern reoccurring, you have a weakness within you. There's something very weak that you are still embodying or you're playing out. And again, that's good news because that means you have control over it. You can take responsibility and then therefore see a different mirror in your reality. So this is why I'm so, sorry, noob slip alert. Noob slip alert. So that's why I'm so excited for this video. And I'm diving into it. So again, don't see this as just the list that I'm like list of information I'm regurgitating. Like I'm diving into the energetics, and every video, especially when it's like a live sit down in the sense where it's a stream of consciousness, no editing, we're transmuting something, right? So I'm feeling into the energetics. So bear with me right now. This is not just, hey, let me give you a list of information and this is for your mental brain to absorb. No, this is deeper. Whew. So the first vital trait for you as the strong, embodied Empress, and that's a path, right? We're not walking around like, I'm the Empress. That's not the energetics. It's a deep, embodied, master of all archetypes path that we're taking. But this is the lens I'm viewing everything in my life through. And I'm viewing everything in my life through this like path of becoming the embodied Empress energetic. And that's ascension in a vessel. So the first one is you love yourself fully, truly, and you know you deserve the best. That might seem very like, duh, okay, yeah, but it's not lived. Like there is always more potential. And when I say you deserve the best and you know that, this is something that has to be like deeply embodied. Like from the core of your being, you have to know that you deserve the best. And when I say the best, I'm not speaking about superficial bullshit. I'm not speaking about, oh, he has to take me on fancy dates every day, or I don't know why I'm making this voice. Sorry. That's not what I meant. Right? But it has nothing to do with some bratty, entitled, oh, I deserve the best. I deserve a rich dude right now, and he has to give me everything. That's not what I'm speaking about. When I say you should know that you deserve the best, you deserve God in your life. And no, I'm not, if you know me, I don't come from a religious background. God for me is purity, truth, the core of the universe, the benevolence of this existence, the creation force, which is benevolent, right? This is what you deserve. And again, this is quite cryptic, but I'm attempting to put something that cannot be named into words. You deserve purity. You deserve truth in your life. That is what I mean by that. And if you are devoted to that path of purity, to that path of descension, ascension, truth within you, coming back to nature, you don't deserve anything less than that, which means in your relationship, you deserve evolution, right? This is how I see the best to me is evolution. I see my partnership, I see my man and me constantly evolving into deeper love, into more truth, into more purity. That is what I would determine as the best. And that's what you deserve. And you have to know that. A woman that isn't aware of that in the core of her being will pull out weakness in her man, or she will attract weak men. I've been there. Like throughout most of my life, and I've been with wonderful men. Like they had, like, their core was just wonderful. Like literally every single one of them is so magical and so like to adore, but they weren't integrated, right? And it's like, it doesn't really matter if at the core of his beings, at the core of his being, maybe Freudian slip, I don't know, but at the core of his being, everyone is wonderful. So that doesn't count. How integrated is the man? And if I look back, the men I were with or in partnerships with, they weren't integrated. Like, yes, their core was magnificent and it, like, I love all of them to the core, but they were missing vital components and they were weak in a lot of ways. They didn't strive for more in life. There was a certain courageousness that was missing. And they also oftentimes didn't know how to handle me. So that was a reflection too. I would demasculate men without being aware of that. I didn't know I deserve the best. So therefore, if I feel insecure, if I don't have God within me, if I don't have truth within me, and I feel worthless, what kind of man am I attracting into my life? It is a mirror. And while some of the men attempted to show me how lovable I am, if I carry this worthlessness within me, by law, they carry the same shadow or the same, right, the same part where light hasn't shined yet. And the moment we resolve that, by law, we will see a different reflection in our environment. And so when I say you deserve the best and you have to know that, that's what I'm speaking about. And as you bring more truth into your life, you will attract a strong masculine, right? Because a strong masculine is striving for that. He knows that he deserves the best because he's in truth and he's evolving. So you see how deep this goes. And so my question for you is, in every cell of your being, do you know that you deserve the best? And with that, I want to mention something, and it's not necessarily, I don't know if it's related, but there is this beautiful balance of loving yourself fully and wholly and loving the fuck out of yourself. And yet there will always be, if it's real, like if it's real, if it's not fake, because you can't fake it, right? It's not this like, oh, I really love myself, like this fake self-love. We're not talking about that. But if you really fully love yourself, there still will always be a part of you that can't really grasp how beautiful you really are, okay? And that is so precious. And I feel like that's by design. There is a beauty that we carry that only someone else can illuminate for us. And And I see that in my sessions. Like, it's one of the purest moments ever. And it's when you, like, I'm overwhelmed by the beauty of the women that I work with, and I'm talking about the light that they shine. And it's awe-inspiring. And when I share that with them, there is always this, oh my God, this humble preciousness of, I'm revealing something for the first time to them. And that will always be there. So I'm speaking to you because you can love yourself deeply, but maybe there is a part of you that is still like not realizing how beautiful you really are. And that's by nature. And someone will come in and see this beauty and illuminate this beauty for you. So you deserve a man, and you deserve a reflection in which this person looks at you, and even though you love yourself so fully, he loves you and he sees you even more than you see yourself at times. And that's this beautiful balance, and it's the most precious moment ever. And there's such a humbleness in it. And that's why, I mean, you cannot fake self-love. And even though you love yourself fully and wholly, there's someone else that will illuminate something for you that you cannot see for yourself. Look out for that man. Watch out for that man. He might be the one. And the deeper you love yourself, you will pull this out of your husband, your man, your boyfriend, whatever, right? Yeah. And I wanted to share that. There will always be a beauty that only someone else can see. And that's freaking precious. The next one is, okay, let me have a sip. She can surrender into being provided for, but she's also building her own legacy. So sit with that for a second. Does that apply for you? And now let me get into why I believe this is important, or what I've seen in my sessions, what I've seen in my experience. First of all, this whole boss ass bitch thing is, I mean, yeah, get your grind on, right? It's a fun energy to play with. But if that runs your life and you don't know how to shut it off, it's a distortion. That's a sweet energy to run when you're like, I'm gonna get shit done, I'm gonna get this going. But if it actually influences your way of receiving, something's off balance here. And that's what I mean with, she loves being provided for, right? In the feminine nature, it's so beautiful to receive, to be under the protection of a man. And that shows in financials as well. So as that embodied woman, you feel so comfortable in being provided for, being paid for. It's just, you can relish in that. Because I know a lot of women have this, I see that, right? Not so much in the women that I work with, but even in my mother or in the German culture, there's a lot of like 50-50 bullshit, or women feel guilty, or I hear about dates and like the bills are split, and it's just like, nah, not around here. Because a real man loves to provide. It's in his nature. And yes, I grew up with a lot, or around a lot of cultures that had these qualities, right? A lot of Middle Eastern men. I grew up around a lot of like Russian men, and it's very traditional there, With German man, it depends, right? But again, that's very unattractive to me because of the erotic nature, right? It's like when you get to surrender and someone's like, baby girl, I got you. There is something so erotic in this. And as a woman, it's such a beautiful quality to be able to surrender into that, right? Enjoy having a man taking care of you, because when you enjoy it, a man will take care of you, because essentially that's what he wants to do. It's in his nature. So relish in that. And yet, that's a phase, or that's something that is fluid, because this is not about totally and like relying on your man for everything. You're also building your legacy, and this is very, very vital. And now there are a lot of like masculine revival movements that I resonate heavily with them, right? Because there are a lot of qualities that are like so in truth for me, but it's very black and white. And what I hear with these like masculine movements and masculine revival like movements, it's this going back to something old, and that doesn't really work, right? It's going back to these super traditional roles where she's just the mother, she's just the housewife. And I'm not saying that's not a lot. That is a lot for a while. It's a phase. And yet, if we get stuck in this as women, if we get too comfortable, it takes away our power. And again, I resonate a lot with that. I resonate a lot with the polarity behind it, and playing these roles for a while is necessary, right? If you're having children, or if it's a phase where you're building yourself up and your man is supporting you, like take that in fully without any guilt, shame. That's ridiculous. Like, no, that's a beautiful role to have. But also, we cannot go back in time, because we as humans are evolving and progressing. We are multidimensional, and we are stepping more into our multidimensionality day by day or moment to moment. And if we look back into tribal living, everyone had their role, right? There was the chef, and he was the chef or she was the chef all of her life. That was her role in the tribe. There was the shaman or the shamani. That was her role throughout all her life. You see, at this point, we're not playing a role throughout our whole incarnation. We are multidimensional. We are the masters of all trades, the jack of all trades, the masters of all archetypes. So for our soul evolution, it is not satisfying, or for most of us at least, depending on where we're at, it's not satisfying to just play one role throughout all of our life. We came here to experience and to have like such a rich experience of life. And now, being a mother or being a housewife or being a wife can be very rich. So while it's here, like freaking savor it. But if there's not something that's building a legacy in the background, this might feel like a trap. This might feel like imprisonment. And that's okay, because there's probably something else that wants to be birthed through you. And if you're completely neglecting that other part of you, that legacy that wants to be birthed through you, again, you might feel entrapped. And like I see this as almost like we're like a spy, right? We can immerse ourselves in all of the roles. And that's a beautiful quality to have. Now, why do I believe it's important? The women that I work with, and I also saw it within myself, when the evolution is lacking in the relationship, we have no leverage. because we're kind of stuck in that sense that we are being provided for. So we have no pillar on our own that we can stand on, which I see just for so many women. They are settling for a relationship without evolution. They are settling for a relationship without intimacy out of fear or out of lack of leverage. And when I say leverage is if your man knows that you cannot leave, or your man feels that there's no urgency to act on the things that are not working out because you'll be here anyway, it's not good for his evolution, and it's for damn sure not good for your evolution, because you're settling for something out of reliance. And again, leaving a relationship to me is the last resort. But I've been in that psychology, right? If someone, and it's a dynamic, if someone feels like they have power over you, and that may be the male shadow coming out of, right, the part that, and it's not evil, it's just if there's something that is so traumatic for them and they do not want to look at it, and you or losing you would be the only thing that would create more pain than the actual trauma, but there's no leverage for that because you're not leaving, they won't look at the trauma. That's weak, right? This is a weakness, this is a weak trait, but it happens depending on what we went through. So it is very, very healthy to also have that in the back of your mind. What is the legacy you're here to create? Be comfortable in being provided for, and yet let that seed sprout within you. What are you here to create? Because this will be very healthy for your relationship and, again, for your soul path. You came here to experience the richness of life. This is not something you have to figure out by tomorrow. Again, this is a seed that will sprout over years, and there is something greater you're here to do. Now, again, don't allow that to rip apart your family life. We're not talking about that whole boss bitch situation where you're leaving your family to work 10 hours a day. That's not what we're talking about, right? This is not the times we're living in. We live in the age of beautiful creation and graceful creation. So this is a different paradigm we're talking about. But get comfortable with the thought that you're here to be more than a mother, and being a mother is beautiful, and it's again, it's a phase, and there's more. Okay, the next one is she's not afraid of consequences. Now, what do I mean by that? And it goes into what we just spoke about. If you are financially dependent or emotionally codependent, you might be holding back on your truth, and that's a weakness within you. Therefore, by law, you will pull out a weak version of your man, or you will attract weak guys. And when I say weak man, what I mean by that, or partially what I mean by that, is men that run from responsibility, men that are afraid to do the inner work, men that are not evolving, men that are in trauma loops, men that are not creating intimacy with you, or that are okay with not creating intimacy, men that are in a certain victim modality. That's what I mean by weak. But when you are afraid of consequences, you are being weak. So you see that mirror, and To me, a relationship is here to move us into our greatest version, is here to build a foundation for Earth, or for what some call New Earth. It's here to hold us accountable, because you, in your face, constantly have a reality check. Where are you in your evolution? Right? The amount of depth, the amount of harmony, the amount of intimacy will show you where you're at. So you cannot run from anything in a relationship. Same with children. Your children will show you so clearly where you're still living lies, or you're living limitations, or you're living fake personas, or you're living out a shadow. Same with relationships. So the foundation of a relationship should be clear that it's here for evolution. And relationships to me are the most sacred dynamic, because families are the pillar of the new world we're moving into. We truly are moving into a golden age, and healthy families are the foundation. Therefore, they have to be protected, and they have to be protected from within. So if you're in a relationship, you have to protect this third entity that you've created, right? You and your man created a psychic body, and within that psychic body, you are purifying. This is sacred. This psychic body, the relationship, is the pillar of the new reality we're moving into, the new world we're creating. And it's also the pillar for the next generations to come for you. So this has to be protected. This has to be the most sacred container in your life, and the most purified container. When you're afraid of consequences, you might not speak your truth at times. And again, something I see in so many women. They share something with me, and I straight up just ask them, have you shared that with your man? And they haven't. Their throat is blocked. They're scared. They cannot share this, even though that might be the thing that would change the whole dynamic. But they're afraid of consequences. They're afraid of losing the relationship. They're afraid of losing their marriage. They're afraid of raising their children by themselves. And while, yes, I agree, this is the last resort, you can be afraid of it, but it shouldn't stop you from speaking your truth. And someone that is afraid of consequences will act weak. If you see that the dynamic is rotten, if you see that something in this partnership is just out of truth, it's just a lie, it's harmful, it's devastating, and you're not speaking your truth, or you're not acting on it because you're afraid of the consequences, you are acting out of weakness, and therefore you can only see this weak mirror in your life. Your man will be weak. He will act weak. And so the divine feminine, the strong woman, the grown integrated woman is not afraid of consequences. Again, to me, breaking up a marriage or leaving a relationship is not the first go-to, right? It's not the first thing you're going to when things get rough. It's the last resort. But that last resort has to be an option for both of you to remain accountable when things get rough. Because again, nothing is more painful than losing this relationship. And if nothing is more painful than losing this relationship, you both will do the inner work. So if you are allowing lower expressions of your relationship or lower expressions of your partner because you're emotionally dependent or you're financially dependent, you're not showing up strong for both of you. The next one. And again, we all might carry that to a certain degree. And I'm here within this video to shine a light on these things. Because again, there's great and major ways that this might play out, but there might also be just last little leftovers that we play out these dynamics. The next trait of a grown, integrated woman, or the divine feminine, is she is here for long-term building, not short-term illusion. And the wild woman in you knows who you are at the core. And there's a difference between a wild woman and a wild child. So the wild woman knows that nothing could take away her nature. No motherhood, no staying at home, no being a wife for a while or being a full-time mother for a while. Nothing can take away this ancient primordial fire within her. She is truth. She is the oracle. She is the wild woman. And again, she knows that nothing can take that from her. Therefore, the wild woman isn't afraid to make short-term compromises for long-term freedom. Now, the wild child will look at every compromise like settling, or she will look at it like imprisonment. And that's the difference. And I've had to work through that major, right? There's this entitlement that comes with this. Like, I want all of my boxes checked right now, and I want it all now. And if I don't have it now, I'm settling. And that's a very hard container and archetype to break out of, because it's painful, because it literally feels like you're dying and you're giving up something, or you're settling for something less. And there's a difference. And again, it's truly like a child. And I wrote this down. The wild child has no sense of long-term thinking. She wants it all now. And it's entitlement without contribution, and every compromise feels like imprisonment or settling. And she thinks in instant gratification rather than long-term creation, which makes her neither wife nor life material. And again, this is something we can overcome within a relationship if we're committed to the relationship. But if we're not committed to the relationship, this is something that has us jumping from one person to the next person and feeling like, oh no, they're not enough, and this is not enough, and this is not checking all my boxes, and I deserve more here. And it's this constant like highs and lows, right? When I was in this phase, I was experiencing high highs and low lows, and it's chaotic, and it feels good for a while, right? If that's the phase you're in, explore it. But at a certain point, there is a phase for everything. And I don't believe in settling, but there's a difference in, again, short-term compromises for long-term freedom. And there might be phases in your relationship where you're working through stuff, and especially the first years of a relationship are major work. It's not necessarily all beautiful. It's quite the opposite. You're coming together in this alchemical container that literally alchemizes every shadow living in you. That is major work. So in that time frame. This might not be the time frame where you're just living your life and you're traveling to every country possible and you're going on fancy dates and you're having these like peak experiences. There is a time where you're both planted the seed and the seed is still underground. It's still in the earth. And it will take a little bit of time for that seed to sprout. And so for the wild child, she doesn't recognize that because, again, she thinks in instant gratification. She doesn't see the building that is connected to freedom. Right? It's like these, I see it in a lot of women that are like, oh, I'm living in my RV and that's the dream, or I want to travel right now and I want it all right now. And there might be a time that feels like confinement, but it's a womb space. And that has to be recognized. So rather than looking for someone that has all the boxes checked right now, right? Oh, he's a billionaire, he has a yacht, he has this, and he has that, and he's extremely like, he's a mystic, he's a philosopher, like, right? All of these things. Does that man have a shared vision with you, which is the most major box to check? Because when he shares a vision with you truly, he will become everything along the way, because both you and him have programmed the container. Your vision is your womb space. So when you both have the same vision and it's grounded, right? It's not this fluffy shit where someone's just like, yeah, I want all of this and I want to be a billionaire, but they like can't even show up in the moment. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you have a grounded man and you can see his vision and you have a shared vision, the vision is a womb that you will both grow into the version that both of you, I don't want to say need, but it will be your highest version. And that's the most major and vital box to check. Everything else will happen along the way. So what are the major boxes that have to be checked? Because once you are in a relationship, you will create boxes that you couldn't even perceive before that relationship. Like you didn't even perceive the existence of these boxes before you went into the relationship. So you will create boxes and you will check them together. So don't be so stuck on, he has to check all of these boxes, right? There are some major boxes like, do you have a shared vision? Because that's the womb space. That's the most vital one. If you don't have a shared vision, it's kind of pointless. Like he can share all the boxes in the moment, but if you don't have a shared vision, what's the freaking point? And for me, it's also physical attraction. Like that has to be there. There has to be a magnetism. There has to be eroticism. For me, there had to be some physical things where boxes needed to be checked just because it's freaking vital for me. And right, you know what are the vital boxes for you and what might be the wild child being afraid. So, and again, like typical questions I get from women that are still running this wild child archetype or that are afraid, and I get it, right? They're afraid to give up their freedom. They're afraid to move into like a shitty, boring life and settling. I get it, but you don't. And that's the difference. The wild woman knows that she will never settle. It's not possible. She has this fire burning, this primordial God fire that won't allow her to settle. So don't be afraid of short-term confinements. You're working on something great and that takes time. And there's a phase when the seed is underground and when the flower is blossoming. That's the lavish life. That's the travel. But for that, you need a beautiful foundation, and that starts underground. And it starts with the underworld. It starts with the shadow shit that comes up. So don't run from that. Don't. If you have a good man on your side, you both will evolve into something that you can't even perceive yet. So typical questions I get is like, oh, but if he only checks 50% of that of my list. Aren't you settling? Or he's not taking you out on like fancy dates every week. You deserve better than that, right? And things like, oh, but you aren't traveling right now. And I get it. But if you weren't afraid, what would you do? So eliminate this fear of that anything can take away your freedom or anything can take away your life purpose, because that's not possible. And if you knew that, how would you act? So again, if you're playing out this wild child archetype, even if it's like in little moments, how can your partner show up strong? Or how could you call in a real man into your life? Because a real man will look for a builder. A real man knows that he's building an empire and he's not going to look for a wild child. Now, that wild child can always live within you, but it has to be alchemized. And that's the point, right? Being childlike is beautiful, but there's a difference. And if the wild child is sabotaging the relationship, a real man won't be attracted to you, or you will not pull out the strongest version of your man or your husband. Okay, next one. The next one is a juicy one. I need to sit for that. The divine feminine in a relationship learns how to master her oracle. A grown woman in a relationship knows when to be passive and when to be active. Now, let's get into this. What your oracle is basically, as a woman, you are the translator for nature. Nature lives within you. Truth lives within you. And you are the translator for it. I have a whole video on it. I'm going to link this down below, in which I go into in-depth of what the oracle is and how it shows up. But in your relationship, you have a great access to truth, to nature, to the womb, right? The womb is the oracle. And I'm not saying your man doesn't have that, but you play a major role in that. And a real woman is mastering her oracle. She knows it exists and she learns how to use it masterfully. So we spoke about the shared field, right? The psychic body that is created when you are in a relationship. The purity of both of you is the shared goal. So if there is something impure, your oracle will send it into the field. So if you know the transformational power of your oracle, there is no reality in which you will nag and complain. That doesn't mean, I'm going to get to that. Like, that doesn't mean that you're not going to speak out things, but there's a vibration of constant nagging that is disgusting. You deserve so much better than that woman. Like, you deserve to live in a reality where nagging doesn't exist. Because how does that feel to you? It comes from this victim mentality of like, there's nothing I can do and I'm living such a shitty life, so let me make your life shitty as well. No, that's not happening. We cannot do this. When you catch yourself nagging, it's the most unattractive thing ever. I'm speaking from experience. Like, when I catch myself in this nagging frequency, it's like, who would want to me? Like, who would want to make love to me? Who would want to take me? Like, it's disgusting. It's a victim frequency. When you catch yourself, quit it, right? It's also for your man. It's like, that's the moment he becomes absolutely numb to what you're saying, because it's just such a frequency that he's like, let me just shut off. I don't want to listen to that. So You're passive. Being passive doesn't mean that nothing's happening, but know when to not bite your tongue. It's not even that. It's just knowing that something's working in the background that is so much more powerful than any word you could speak right now, because maybe he's not able to receive it. If he's in a pattern that is destructive for your relationship, right? There's a time when you see the consciousness, meaning maybe you drop some very subtle hints here and there, like breadcrumbs. There's time to pray. And what I mean by praying is affirming your reality. This comes back to you deserve the best. So if there's something playing out that is not in your highest good, and it's not in his highest good, and it's not in the highest good of your relationship, you can be 100% certain that it will be alchemized. Because rule number one, you deserve the best. So the passive way is to pray. What I mean by that is affirming and reminding yourself of the reality you are creating. So therefore, eliminate everything that you're seeing within him. First of all, eliminate it within you. How is it a mirror? And once you eliminate it, know that you affirm a higher reality. You affirm a higher frequency of living. You will have it because you deserve the best. And then we'll watch it. You can watch it crumble. You can watch it fall away. But there's a fine line, and that's the mastery. There's a time to be active because there's a lioness living within you. And what I mean by lioness is a lioness is strong and can even seem aggressive when it's time to protect the thing that she loves most. Like if someone was to threaten her lion cub or threaten her pack, you can be damn sure that she won't passively lay around, but she will freaking bite, she will fight, she will do everything that it takes to protect what is most sacred for her. So if the dynamic in your relationship is getting too toxic, or there's just such a weakness displayed by your man, there's a time to snap him out of this. There's a time to be active in your oracle. There's a time to be, hey, listen up. Remember what we agreed upon. You're being weak right now. Or this is not the man that I know. My man is stronger than that. Where is my man? Right? There's a time for that. And if you're just passive, you're not being balanced in your oracle and you're being weak. You don't know the power of your oracle. Now, again, that takes balance. And that's a very different energy than nagging. And it might be very intense for some, but that's the intensity that I live in, right? I'm fire and my man is fire and we're real. So if I see a pattern that is toxic to our bond, toxic to our relationship, or that is not helpful for him, my active oracle will come out. And it's not something that I can plan, right? It's very spontaneous. I just gave you an example, but in the moment it might look very different. Now, what I had to learn over time is to not demasculate him, right? But rather remember him of his power. So rather than saying, and I'm still mastering that, rather than freaking blaming him, reminding him of the essence that I see in him. And the only reason that certain habits are bothering me or certain patterns that are playing out are bothering me is because I can feel his strength. And if he's not living up to his strength, that's what's creating this sense of, hey, what are you doing? And that has to be there. And I just see so many women either being in this nagging distortion that is just like no one wants to make love to you like that, and no one wants to be intimate. I just have to say it because it's weak. So don't expect a strong man when you're doing that. And again, we all have to work on it. It's weak. We don't need that frequency in our life. And like this overly passiveness doesn't work. It's not strong either, right? It's it's a beautiful balance of knowing when to be passive in your oracle and when you know that simply your energetic affirming will transform the relationship, and when to step in. Whew, okay. And it's getting pretty long, so I feel like we probably need a part 2. Yeah, let's create a part 2 for that, because this goes really deep and I don't want to just skip over these things, and there's a lot more that I want to share. Whew. So when we do these more flowy videos without editing, I feel like there's a lot more energy transformation here. And again, this is not for mental absorption, right? It's not a list that I'm just like posting. I'm like, here are these 5 things that you want to do as the divine feminine. Like, there is much more behind it. And so, like, I can feel what we're lifting and what we're untangling. So I'm really excited for part 2. And with that, I'll probably see you next week for that. Please comment. I'm very, very curious what you've got out of this video, or just your thoughts, or what you're going through, what you're currently processing. And if you want to work with me, whether in container or one-on-one, right, group sessions or one-on-one, you can find me under sedonagoddess.com, and I'll link it down below too. I always love to get intimate with you, get to know you one-on-one. It's really beautiful because it feels like we're creating this sisterhood, this community. Yeah, and that means the world to me. I love you, and I'll see you next week.